if you're with somebody who is insecure, it's very hard for them, and this has been my experience with you. It's very hard for somebody to say, I'm happy for you, before they say, I'm sad for me. I know that was my challenge in the beginning was, well, I'm happy for Alan, but God, I'm sad for me.
The reason why everyone's afraid of failure or success is usually based on what they got disciplined around or what they got praised for.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, number 1173, The Reason So Many People Lose It All. Today, for episode number 1174, Where Does the Fear of Success Come From? Happy Saturday. Alan and I hope you had a wonderful, wonderful week. Did you have a wonderful week?
Yeah. What?
We're recording this on Monday, so you couldn't possibly know. That's why I asked the question. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I have a wonderful weekend?
No. Did you have a wonderful
weekend?
Did you have a wonderful week? Who knows? Maybe. In the future, you might have.
Last week was brutal, and the weekend was great.
Good. Well, let's hope this week is more productive than the last one was. It was very productive, but okay, here we go. I was doing a coaching call the other day, and I always say this. Yes, I am a podcast coach, but sometimes it's business, sometimes it's social media, sometimes it's mindset, sometimes it's peak performance, sometimes it's speaking. It's a lot of things. It depends on where the person is in their podcast journey and what they need from me, and honestly, what I can actually add value in. I always tell people, hey, I'm not the best at that. I haven't done that, so I can't help you. But I had a call with somebody, and this person and I have a very good relationship. This individual is a very, very humble human, but very confident, and somebody who's very successful financially and just values a lot of the same things I do. It's just we have a very good relationship. And it got to the middle of the call, and we started talking about why this person is not posting on social media consistently. And we've talked about this many, 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 many times. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you're very financially successful. Your relationship seems amazing. Your fitness is definitely you're above average when it comes to fitness. I said, is there any part of you that you believe is afraid of success? And that this person said, interesting. He said, that's something I never would have resonated with in the past, but I am starting to resonate with now. And I said, it's very interesting because you're somebody who could definitely start coaching people, but you won't. And I said, why? And he said, honestly, I feel like I'm an imposter. Who am I to coach somebody else? Who am I who still has my own junk to figure out? Who am I to try to help other people figure out their stuff? And I said, okay, interesting. And we did this exercise where I said, I want to do two things. I want you to, and I believe it was for homework, I want you to make a line down the center of a piece of paper. And on one side, it's going to be the positive benefits of success. On the other side, it's going to be the negative detriments of success. And I want you to write them down. What are the perceived positives of success? So you get clients, you start making money from the podcast. I know you're making $30,000 a month, so money isn't a huge, huge motivator, but you leaving your job eventually is. Write down all the positives and then write down all of the potential negatives. Does success create distance in your relationship? Does success bring up the opportunity for people who used to know you now and say, oh, that person was terrible. That person was mean to me. That person bullied me. I remember dating that person. Do you think it will create distance between you and your family? Do you think it will bring out a higher level of imposter syndrome? The goal in today's episode is for you to understand if you are afraid of success, where does it come from? Are you actually afraid of success? And how do you ultimately overcome that? I never knew this was a thing, Alan, until you and I had that conversation one day, and I was like, wait, how could you possibly, isn't that what we're doing this for? What do you mean you're afraid of success? How are you sabotaging us? Are you holding us back? Isn't that why we're doing this? But for me, I've always been afraid of failure, and Alan and I really started to understand each other and ourselves at a deeper level when we realized, oh, maybe you're more afraid of success than I knew was possible. And I think there's probably way more people than I realize that are actually afraid of success, honestly.
So I'll give you an example, Kev. I think this will land particularly with our female listeners, but I think everybody. When I first started dating Emilia, she's just beyond gorgeous, inside and out. But right now in this analogy or in this example, I'm going to use outside. So when we were going to the gym one time and she was getting ready to go to the gym and so was I. We were putting on our gym clothes and she said, "Do you mind if I don't wear a bra?" And I was like, "Not at all." Like, of course, like, oh, great, perfect, totally great. Yeah, big fan. And I essentially later on, I unpacked it. We do an experience review. And I said, "Sweetheart, why would you ask that? Like, of course, you do whatever you want. Like, wear whatever you want." You know what I mean? And she's like, "Well, in the past, I've had partners who got really insecure when I was dressed nicely when we went out because it was, it attracted unwanted attention from other guys or whatever." I was like, "Babe, don't even worry about it. Like, obviously I want you to be respectful and I don't want you to dress trashy or anything like that. But at the end of the day, you choose always. Like, you choose. This is your life. This is not, I don't choose what you wear, right? Ever." So, and vice versa too, right? And so this is kind of my point. And Emilia definitely has a fear of success more than a fear of failure. She doesn't have any problem failing. Fail forward, no big deal. And I know many people, and again, this was back 30 years ago, so I didn't realize this back then, but now I understand it at a far deeper level. Every human either fears failure or fears success. To some extent. Some people fear both. And that's why they find this lukewarm middle. Like, okay, I'm successful enough to where I'm not the worst in the class, but I don't want to be valedictorian either because I can't handle that pressure. Or I don't want to be hated or envied or whatever. So it's kind of like Emilia going to the gym. When Emilia goes to the gym, and I know a lot of female clients of mine feel this way too, if you dress a certain way, you end up getting really unwanted attention. And you can't focus as much on your workout. So Emilia's drop dead gorgeous, in my opinion, and obviously a lot of other people feel that way as well. So if she dresses a certain way, it's going to get attention and it's going to take her focus off of her workout. So I think that's why people fear success, is that when they shine really bright, they attract attention, both good and bad. Mm. And a lot of times they've been conditioned to stay small, similar to an ex-boyfriend or whatever saying, like, "Don't wear that because you're going to, because they're insecure," right? And so I think we're all conditioned to either fear failure or to fear success. Little kids, during Thanksgiving, I played basketball against a 17-year-old. I think he was 16 or 17. And we were all at the table and Thanksgiving, awesome. Somehow basketball came up and Emilia essentially said Alan's awesome at basketball, which I was really grateful. Again, awesome is a relative term here, right? I'm not playing at any D1 colleges or anything like that. But this young high school guy apparently is awesome at basketball too. And he challenged me. He's like, "There's a hoop out there." And I was like, "Oh, interesting. No. Like, no big deal. Like, let's not do this." So the night goes on, and someone comes over, and I think it was my mom. My mom comes over. It's like, "Everyone's out there waiting. Like, we're all waiting. We want you to play basketball." And it's like freezing cold out, right? So we ended up playing. We played horse twice, and yes, I did bring home the W. But I remember while this person was playing basketball, the people in the audience, the family, was making all these comments. They were playful with it, but they were making a bunch of comments. Some negative, some critical, some really positive, some great job, all that kind of stuff. The reason why everyone's afraid of failure or success is usually based on what they got disciplined around or what they got praised for. And so, for example, if Emilia, every relationship she's ever been in this analogy, and this isn't necessarily true, but this is hypothetical in the same analogy, let's say she was always with insecure guys who didn't like when she looked really good because she looked better than they did, and she always got attention, and maybe they were insecure about the attention she was getting. I'm not. I want her to look her best, and I love when she wears great things in the gym because then I get to enjoy myself too. And I love to check her out. Okay. So what if she's conditioned to not shine? What if she's conditioned? Okay, so picture Beyonce on stage, right? She dresses really provocatively sometimes. And what if she's with an insecure partner who doesn't like when Beyonce gets attention? What if Beyonce has been conditioned, she obviously hasn't, has been conditioned to not shine, to not own the stage, Beyonce owns the stage. That's why she's Beyonce. But if she had a bunch of insecure parents and a bunch of insecure partners and if she was conditioned to stay small, she would never be Beyonce. So maybe Beyonce was afraid of success and maybe she had to overcome that, and we don't know because we've never interviewed her or met her. But my point is that some people are afraid of failure and some people are afraid of success, and most of us live in this little comfort zone middle ground where it's like we're not so successful that we're shining too bright to where we get envied and ridiculed or lashed out on, but we're not failures enough to where we're getting, disciplined either, of like, oh, you came home with all D's? Like, what's this about, right? So everyone is one or the other, and I think that's really the point that I wanted to make, is some people are afraid to shine too bright. I have some clients like that. And then other people are afraid that they're not good enough, or afraid they can't succeed, or afraid they're not beautiful. Emilia is not afraid she's not beautiful. That's not the issue. The issue is, am I going to be able to have a good workout, or am I going to get negative attention because I'm quote unquote too beautiful or whatever? And so everyone is one or the other, and I think it's important for all of us to kind of contemplate which end we're on.
It's interesting too, because it kind of goes back to our previous episode about character, where I've heard this before from other people, where they'll say, honestly, I wasn't a very good, and obviously this is also contextual and it depends on the situation, but I wasn't a very good person when I was younger. I have some things that I did that I regret, that I'm afraid if I do become successful, it's going to come to the surface again, or that's how everybody's going to remember me, and I'm going to have to knock down these walls. Another thing I've heard too is I don't want a bunch of people to reach out hating, especially on social media, because I have seen clients of mine get a lot of hate from people, for sure, and I can understand if you're not quote unquote successful at all, why you wouldn't want to be more successful, because the more successful you get, the more hate you're going to get too, just as it works statistically. I think that's a couple things to look at. Imposter syndrome is a big one. I think that's one of the big things. I think another one for many people is I don't think I can sustain success. It's like, okay, when I get successful, then what? Then I have to sustain that for the rest of my life. I think that's another thing. And what do you think the biggest one is? I think the biggest one's probably relationships.
Same.
From what I've seen.
There's one person I'm thinking of who's young and has one of the highest potentials I've ever seen. And someone's potential I'm really honed in on. I'm always looking at people's potential. That's my mission, really, is to maximize my own unique potential and help others do the same. So this is very on my radar. This person is very high, like on the highest end I've almost ever seen. She's afraid of success, not failure. So the way I coach her is very different. It's completely different, actually, because she's so good at everything that's not the issue. The issue is, if you continue leaning into how good you are at things, your partner is going to be deeply insecure. And it's going to cause issues in your relationship. One of the cool things about being with Emilia, she believes in herself so much, she doesn't get insecure when I'm awesome at stuff. Yep. If anything, she just builds it up. Like, go play ball. Alan's amazing at basketball. Like, blah, blah, blah. All these things, right? I remember I had a friend of mine in college. He said, Alan, is there anything you're not great at? Is there anything you're not awesome at? Like, are you awesome at everything? And I appreciate the compliment, and I was flattered, but I think I understand what he was trying to say. And this person, in hindsight, was very insecure. What he was saying is like, screw you, man. You know what I mean? Like, everything comes so easy to you. And I do understand in hindsight some of the stuff that I just didn't understand back then, but it makes sense, right? Because when you're so good at stuff, quote unquote, people get that whole must be nice thing. And it hurts your relationships. Being better, like, I'll give another example. I have a friend of mine who is in ridiculously good shape, like unreasonably good shape, like top 1 in a million level shape. When he takes his shirt off at the beach, it doesn't make anyone else feel good. No one else feels good. You can't. You almost can't. It's just a massive mirror. Like, oh my God, like, God, I wish I was in shape, right? That doesn't feel good. Being the best doesn't help your relationships. Seriously, that's like a thing. it hurts your relationships typically, unless the other people are super inspired and super humble and super growth minded, which, by the way, not common, right?
Hello, my name is Eddie Pinero. I'm the founder of Your World Within, and I wanted to take a second and just express how valuable working with Alan has been. His ability to help me create clarity and maintain focus on my big picture goals has been huge. You know, he's been a huge asset with the roadmap as well, the day-to-day things, the little things that we sometimes overlook. I think anyone looking to, grow themselves, grow a business or both, would truly benefit from having Alan as an ally along the way. Again, great mind, but more importantly, solid dude.
So this person I'm thinking of, she's 24 years old. She's amazing. Her issue is not you have to go get better. You already are doing that. You're amazing. If anything, the analogy I use is I said behind the scenes, and I said this to her. I'm like, by the way, first of all, how do I know this? I understand. I've been there. Behind the scenes, you're better than anyone knows. And then you go and you kind of pretend to be super less than around other people so they don't get uncomfortable. And then you go back behind the scenes, seek solitude, and then you're awesome and you're crushing it. You're crushing it. And then in front of the scenes, you're back to this sort of shrunken version of yourself. And I think that the Beyonce analogy, you got to get outside. It's uncomfortable to be better than. I'm serious. This is for the people who resonate with fear of success. It is actually uncomfortable for me to be better than Kevin at something. When he says all those nice things about, business and, when you say, where are you headed on other podcasts, and you're like, well, wherever Alan points, like that's uncomfortable for me. That doesn't feel, that's like scary for me, just so you know. Because what does that mean? Does that mean I'm alone? Does that mean Kevin's going to get insecure and get all weird? And so for people
less
that are,
now than ever.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But I think that's what this fear of success comes from more than anything else. It's not fear of incompetence, Kev. It's fear of relationships, I think.
Makes sense.
I'm not afraid to be incompetent. I'm afraid to be more competent so that it hurts my relationships, because it has. I think that people who, and you tell the story of your ex-girlfriend who she wanted to go chase her dreams and you gave her every reason why not to do that. And unfortunately, that's how most people are.
Yeah.
And so when you believe in yourself and you want to be on stages and you want to change people's lives and you want to do that new movie and people get afraid, they get scared. They are not so quick to be like, yeah, you got, that's all, like, great. Like, and I think that if you associate if you've ever been in a relationship, and then I'll move on here, but in my past intimate relationships, I do think that I was with people who struggled with self-belief. I just didn't know it. And so when I leaned into my dreams academically or business or podcast, whatever, I think that it triggered fear. And when people are in fearful states, love isn't what comes out. What comes out is this weird energy that often is trauma responses that hurt the relationship. Usually there's arguments or fights or a disconnect or a break in rapport or whatever. And so the analogy is when someone takes their shirt off at the beach and they look ridiculously good, I'm talking like stupidly in shape, everyone else is like, ugh, no one else in the room feels good. That is the hardest part about success, I think. And that's really uncomfortable for me. To being in worse shape than someone else doesn't affect me that much. Being in better shape than everyone else, it's scary.
Interesting. I'm glad you went as deep as you did, because this isn't something I've struggled with. For me, I'm not worried about, I'm not afraid of being successful. I'm worried about being successful. I'm afraid of being a failure. That's my thing.
Well, let's do that real quick. But you've always said, Kev, you said, Alan, I'm not worried about my relationships. I know that I can succeed there. I'm worried about not being successful. That's all it is. I'm not worried about not being successful.
Alone. I'm also good at being alone too, though. I think that's part of it too, is like, before Taryn, I don't ever want to not be with Taryn. But before Taryn, if you said like you're gonna be alone forever, it would suck. But I don't know. I'd find a way. I'm kind of used to it. I'm kind of used to being alone.
But I think that for me, I was never afraid to not be successful. I was afraid to be alone.
Yeah.
For you, I think you were never really that concerned about whether or not you'd.
Yeah.
have
Well,
a
just look at the
relationship.
past, right? One of the most popular kids on campus. I had 3 friends. I didn't go to college. I didn't have a lot of friends. I had really good, really deep relationships.
Right.
I did not have many surface level. For me, it's always been about quality over quantity. So I think that's part of it. It's interesting. Like you were probably, and no judgment on anybody on either end. If you're with somebody who is insecure, it's very hard for them. And this has been my experience with you. It's very hard for somebody to say, I'm happy for you before they say I'm sad for me. I know that was my challenge in the beginning was, well, I'm happy for Alan, but God, I'm sad for me. I am really sad for me. And I've tried to lean into understanding good for Alan is good for Kevin. Good for Alan is good for Kevin. Good for Alan is good for Kevin. Good for Alan. But that's taken a long time. That's a work in progress. So I can understand how a relationship like that would make you think being ambitious, being successful, achieving, outgrowing equals bad. I can understand it makes sense. And again, I was that guy in a relationship, so I very much understand.
I want to share this briefly because I've never been able to fully articulate this in a way that I think lands with people. Emilia is the most aspirational person I've ever personally met. And that is saying something. She has so much self-belief and such big goals and dreams that I actually know that most men can't be with her.
Mm.
So in a weird way, it actually makes me more secure because I know what it requires in terms of self-belief to be with someone like that. I mean, her goals were much larger than mine. Much larger. And I don't have small goals. So what I want to really help people with, if anyone out there is afraid of failure or success, or both, and I think we all are both to some extent, which is why we find this little comfort zone, is that to be with someone who has high self-belief and high aspiration and to be supportive. So Kev, the version of you that didn't want her to go chase her dreams, your ex-girlfriend, and like kind of was taking wind out of her sails unintentionally, thinking you were doing her a favor.
No, it was intentional. It wasn't.
It was intentional. Okay.
That wouldn't be fair to say. I was afraid of being left behind, for sure.
Okay. Okay, that fear of being left behind. Whether it's Emilia or this other person I was talking about who is incredible, you can't. Wanting to support someone is the first step. Being capable of it is another step.
Mm.
And so, with Emilia's past partners, if they were insecure, some of them weren't capable of supporting her. I genuinely mean that. And this is going to be hard to land, but you have to have a certain level of self-esteem and self-belief to be able to support someone like at that level. Because it triggers all these fears and insecurities. And there have been times in my relationship where I've been triggered and I've been unkind or whatever. And I have these moments of humility of like, can you imagine what it would be like if I didn't believe in myself and feel good about me? Like it would be really, really difficult for me to support her at the level I do. And so I told her, I said, sweetheart, like you're never going to be with someone who is you've never been supported the way I can support you. I know that. I want you to shine as bright as possible. I made her 2 promises. I will always, within alignment, help you shine as bright as humanly possible. And I promise to always protect your heart. That first one I have done in absolute spades. The second one I have a couple moments that hurt her heart, family stuff and whatnot. But I do know deep down that it requires, I have to become so much on my own accord in order to be able to dial her up to help her shine brighter, right? Whoever's Beyonce's partner, like think about that. Like
Jay-Z.
How secure do they have to be, in order for that to work, where she doesn't feel suppressed, And I think that's a whole nother episode maybe at some point, but you can want to support your friends. You can want to support your partner. You can want to be happy for others. But honestly, I've come to realize you can want to climb Mount Everest, but if you don't have the skills and the capabilities and the self-belief and the training and the reps and the decade, you can't. You can't just climb Mount Everest because you want to. So maybe you're out there and you have a partner or friends or whatever, and you're afraid of success. Here's the truth. This is what I tell my clients that are afraid of success. You have the wrong people in your corner. I had one person, last thing I'll say, I promise. I was on the phone with this person, and she's young, she's got huge aspirations, and I said, I think you're afraid not to belong. I said, from where is the part of your life where you feel the most belonging? And she said, right here. And I said, I know. I said, why? We went into it because she believes in herself more than everyone else. And she doesn't believe in herself more than I do. And that's why I can pour in a way that other people can't, because you can't give away something you don't have. That's why Emilia's changed my life more than anyone else, because she can't give away what she doesn't have, and she does have more self-belief than me, or at least at the same level. And so just because you want to support someone does not mean that you can. You either need a ridiculous amount of self-belief or a ridiculous amount of humility, or both. And so hopefully that unlocks something for everybody.
Deep. I'm glad you went in the direction you went in, because again, my goal was to try to facilitate this more than anything, because it's just not my struggle. My struggle is not, that's what I'm doing this for, son. I'm doing this for success. That's why I started. Yeah, for sure. But again, I understand I don't necessarily have, interesting, I've never had bigger goals than you, so I'm not really worried about it. I'm not.
Are you more afraid of failure than I am of success? Because if so, we're in good shape. I'm not afraid of failure at all. It's not an issue.
I'm the least afraid I've ever been. I'd say you're probably the least afraid of success you've ever been. So yeah,
makes sense.
I would say we're going at the right direction.
Driving to 5?
Driving to 5. Yeah, I would say so. This is good.
Cool.
I'm glad we did this one. Because maybe it's probably the minority of people that struggle with this, I would say, if I had to guess, because you most likely have to have high self-belief. And my client, this person I'm talking about, has very high self-belief. Very high. And it makes sense. That's why I thought you'd be able to facilitate this at a deeper level than I. So I'm glad we went where we did. Next level, Nation. Our website is revamped. A lot of things are changing. 2022 was a big year for NLU. Hopefully it was a big year for you as well. As you know, we will always want to add more value than anybody else. That's our goal. If we're not adding value, we're not doing our jobs. We have a free course up on our website. We sat down and said, look, we're going to record a course. We're going to charge money for it. How do we make it as valuable as humanly possible? After we recorded it and we packaged it all up, we said, let's give this away for free. I think it's like an hour and a half long. There's worksheets. There's different modules. You can download it. You can share it with your friends. I do not care. You can give it away to everybody on the planet. But at the end of the day, I do believe it'll help you at a deep level. Link will be in the show notes. It's on our website. Totally free. Please, please, please download it and take it.
Listening to this podcast is step one. Going deeper and doing actual worksheets, that can change your life in a way that the podcast can't. So definitely check out that course. Speaking of things that can change your life in a way the podcast can't, we have a community, Next Level Book Club. We just started a new book by Gregory McKeon. It's called Essentialism. And this book is usually behind me. So I usually have 3 books behind me at all times, and it's because it's the 3 most powerful concepts in the world, in my opinion, when you combine them. Number 1, the compound effect, which is small positive choices over time, focused on the essentials. Concept number 2, and growth, the 15 invaluable laws of growth. So essentialism is finally chosen, and we are doing 2 chapters. There's 20 chapters. We're doing 2 chapters per week. Click the link in the show notes. You can register. Camera off, mic off, just listen in, or you can participate as much as you want. The conversations have been extremely valuable, and we will only be focused on the essentials. Pun intended.
Nice work. Next Level Nation, tomorrow for episode number 1175. One surprising thing that you need to use more. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans, we have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful Saturday night.
Please reach out.